I never thought something as simple as a GPS ping would be responsible for unraveling a marriage that had lasted nearly a decade. If you had told me years ago that a tiny digital notification would change my life more than any argument, any apology, or any heartbreak, I would have laughed. But now I know better. Betrayal doesn't always announce itself through lipstick on a collar or whispered phone calls. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it shows up as a blinking dot on a digital map. Let me start at the beginning. Subscribe. My name is Katie, and before the GPS, before the lies piled up high enough to crush me. When I met my husband, Daniel, he wasn't just charming, he felt safe. He had this calm, steady presence that drew me in. He'd listen when I talked. Really listen. And for someone like me, who spent most of my childhood feeling unheard, that meant everything. Daniel wasn't flashy. He wasn't dramatic. His idea of romance was bringing home my favorite tea without asking. His idea of humor was bad puns that made me groan. But he was reliable. The guy you could call when your car battery died. The guy who remembered your mom's birthday. The guy who showed up on time every time. At least, that's who he used to be. Years into our marriage, I didn't notice the shift at first. It didn't happen like a storm. It happened like a slow leak. Quiet, gradual, almost invisible. Little things. He stopped lingering in the kitchen when I cooked. He stopped asking how my day went. He stopped reaching for my hand during movies. And when I'd ask if something was wrong, he'd rub his eyes like he was exhausted and say, "Work's been crazy." Work. That was always the explanation. Work meted him early. Work kept him late. Work stressed him out. I believed him because I wanted to. Because love can make you blind to the things you don't want to see. The night everything changed didn't feel special. It was a regular Tuesday, the kind of day that comes and goes without leaving a mark. I was sitting in the kitchen, scrolling through emails, trying to convince myself to start the mountain of chores I had been avoiding. Daniel's tablet sat on the counter beside me, plugged in, charging like it always did. Then it buzzed. The notification wasn't a message. It wasn't an email. It was a location alert, his car's GPS syncing to the cloud. Normally, I ignored those things. I didn't snoop. I wasn't that person. But something about the address made me pause. It wasn't his office. It wasn't any of the client sites he normally visited. It was a residential area on the opposite side of town, a place he had no reason to be. The map showed he had arrived 12 minutes ago. My first reaction wasn't suspicion. It was confusion. Maybe he was helping a coworker. Maybe he had stopped somewhere for coffee. Maybe it was nothing. But curiosity tugged at me in a way I couldn't ignore. So I tapped the map. There it was, a quiet street lined with small houses. No businesses, no offices. Nothing that matched the story he had told me. I should have closed the tablet. I should have shrugged and moved on. But instead, I stared at that dot like it was trying to talk to me. That night, he came home later than usual. He looked tired. Or maybe he looked guilty. I couldn't tell then. I asked how work was. He gave me the same answer he always did. Long day. Lots to juggle. He kissed. The next evening, the tablet buzzed again. Same alert. Same address. Same late meeting excuse. It was like watching someone perform a script, unaware that the stage lights were revealing all the props behind them. Over the next few days, I checked the GPS every time he said he'd be late. And every time, the blinking dot landed on that same street. Same house. Same pattern. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't confront him. Instead, I collected the truth piece by piece, like picking up broken glass, carefully, slowly, knowing each shard could cut me, but also knowing I needed all of them before I could understand the whole picture. One Friday evening, ironically, the day he had promised we'd finally have a date night soon, I decided to follow him. Not in a dramatic movie-style chase. I just wanted to see for myself. I wanted to know if the GPS was telling the truth, or if my mind was creating monsters. I left the house 20 minutes after he did, taking my car instead of calling a friend or an Uber. The drive felt unreal. My hands were cold on the steering wheel. My heart wasn't racing. It was heavy, like it was sinking deeper with every mile. When I reached the street, I parked a few houses away, where no one would notice. The sun was setting. casting everything in that warm orange glow that usually makes neighborhoods look peaceful. I watched Daniel's car sitting in front of a small, well-kept house with flower pots by the door. 15 minutes passed. Then the front door opened. A woman stepped out. She looked to be in her early 30s. Soft curls, a cardigan. Not overly glamorous, but something about her energy felt intimate, comfortable. A moment later, Daniel walked toward her, and the smile he gave her, it wasn't the tired smile he gave me. It was alive, bright, real. She opened her arms, he hugged her. Not a polite hug, a familiar one, the kind that says, "I've been waiting for you," the kind that says, "I care about you." My stomach dropped, not in shock, but in recognition. I wasn't seeing something surprising. I was seeing something that explained everything I had tried so hard to ignore. I didn't take pictures. I didn't interrupt. I didn't confront them. I sat there in my car, breathing slowly, letting the truth settle in like a cold wind. Eventually, I drove home. I walked into the same kitchen where the first GPS alert had chimed. I sat at the same table, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel confused. I felt clarity, painful clarity, but clarity nonetheless. Over the next week, I began preparing my exit quietly. I gathered important documents. I spoke with a lawyer. I confided in no one. I didn't need opinions or pity. I needed strength. And for the first time in months, I felt it growing inside me. When the moment came, I waited until he sat down at the table, unaware of what I was about to say. I told him I knew. I told him I had seen the GPS alerts. I told him I had driven to the house. I told him everything, calmly, clearly, without trembling. His reaction went through predictable phases. First, denial. You misunderstood. Then, defensiveness. Why were you spying on me? Then blame. If you weren't so distant lately. But the truth was too large to hide behind excuses. I wasn't distant. I was disappearing in a marriage where I no longer existed. I told him I was done. He tried to negotiate. He promised therapy. He promised to end things with her. He begged. But I had already mourned the marriage in the quiet moments he never noticed. I had already accepted the loss. And I had already decided that I deserved more than being someone's second choice. The GPS didn't break us. It revealed the cracks that had been there for years. Leaving him wasn't easy. It hurt. It unraveled a life I had built with hope and trust. But in the months that followed, I found parts of myself I thought I had lost. Confidence, independence, peace. Sometimes betrayal shatters you, but sometimes it frees you. And in my case, freedom arrived as a simple notification, a blinking dot pointing me back to the truth, back to myself.